there would be a helicopter as soon as I come outside. Right now, I have several whips that are perishing, languishing in whip bags and project bags. A couple months away from celebrating my 4th anniversary of this podcast. Like, what? That's wild. Hey friends, welcome to episode 21 of Just Whit, a crafting podcast where I talk about crocheting, knitting, and anything else I get my hands on, along with family life and whatever else I'm up to. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. It's been about 6 months since my last video, and I've been up to a lot, so it's time for me to fill you in. Now, the last video that I uploaded was October of 2023, and I talked about a couple of projects that I was working on, along with what I was up to as far as my YouTube plans. Those have not come to fruition yet, but there has been a lot of new things that happened since then. In November 2023, I vended at my very first fiber fair, SoCal Fiber, and it went really well. I vended all by myself, and it was a 2-day event where knitters, crocheters, weavers, spinners all came together and shared their love of fiber arts, either as vendors or as shoppers. And I vended selling my crochet hooks, stitch markers, and like my patterns. I had my samples there and QR codes for my patterns. I did really well. I was flabbergasted by the amount of support that I got for the things that I make. And it was really hard to vend by myself, but the staff at SoCal Fiber were so helpful. They went around on day one in the beginning, and they took note of everyone who was there vending alone, and they made sure to circle back and visit us every now and then to give us bathroom breaks. And I thought that was really sweet because honestly, I was like planning on water rationing and just not needing to go, or just stepping away from my booth and putting a little "I'll be back" sign and hoping that I didn't miss out on sales because of it. But I didn't have to do that. While they babysat my booth, the volunteers for SoCal Fiber made sure to let people know, I had stepped away and that I would be back, and even chit-chatted with a couple people while they waited. So that was really cool, keeping people engaged while they waited for me to come back. Allowed me to not miss out on sharing my products with a potential customer. So that was huge. That was the first time that SoCal Fiber was ever held. And this event, it stood to take place of Stitches West, which is something that I never attended, but I heard a lot about. And since that event no longer happens, SoCal Fiber was like a hot spot. There were a lot of people there. On day one, there was a line to get in. At any given moment, I had 3 or 4 people in my booth looking at what I had to offer. And at some point in the first day, I sold out of my rainbow mood hooks, and I had a line at my booth, and that line caused more people to be curious, what's going on over there. Shoppers and vendors alike were both very curious what was going on at my booth. So it was really heartwarming to see the amount of support that I could get from like-minded people, and from people who may not have showed up planning to buy a crochet hook or planning to buy stitch markers that were handcrafted. And they just supported me without even batting an eyelash. It was just automatic, and I'm so thankful for that. After after that fiber fair, well, on the second day, someone from the Antique Gas and Steam Engine Museum approached my booth, and she asked me to vend at their upcoming event, which used to take place in October every year, but now was being pushed to April. So for April 2024, I was being invited to vend at this event, and I was like, oh, that's really nice, but I'm like, I don't know. I like, vending was really hard, but I found out that it was local, which takes off a lot of the pressure. SoCal Fiber was also local. It was an hour and a half away from my home, so I was able to stay at my mom's, leave the kids at my mom's house, and drive from her house each morning. That, lowered the cost. I didn't have to buy a hotel room. I didn't have to fly in. I didn't have to ship my products. So, that lowers my overhead and allows me to profit from my sales a lot easier. So when they invited me to this fiber fair, which was literally in the city that I lived in, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I gotta do that one. Definitely gotta do it. In actuality, I should have started preparing for April back in November when I was approached. But life was really busy and hectic at that time. So I really didn't start preparing for the show until February of this year, 2024. And for 2 months straight, all of February and all of March, nearly every single night, I was head down in clay working, and that was brutal. So just the day before the event, I was considering not ever doing this again. Like, oh, this one and done. This is the last time I'm doing this because it's too hard. And I don't need hard things in my life. I need ease. But after expressing those feelings online and letting people know where I was struggling, it allowed people to put their brains together and come to me and say, hey, there's a solution for that. More recently, a friend of mine, Beth, Things Beth Makes on Instagram, said, hey, what about splitting a booth so that way you're not alone? I hadn't even thought about that. I'd seen people do it, and I hadn't even thought about it. And last year at SoCal Fiber, I felt like I was swimming in my booth. I just had the one 6-foot table, and then I brought my own 4-foot table, and that was more so for bags and stuff like that for packing people's purchases. But all I needed was a 6-foot table, and if anything, I really could have got away with just having the 4-foot table. Like, my stuff does not take up a lot of space. So splitting a booth is honestly, it sounds pretty nice, and you're not there by yourself. Although at SoCal Fiber, they do help you out if you're there alone. It's just reassuring to the thought of sharing the booth and knowing that there's going to be someone there to either chat with your customers or keep them engaged while you step away to eat or take a bathroom break, whatever. Because, we're human. We're not supposed to work. These events go from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's not including setting up in the morning and, breaking down if you need to break anything down in the evening. So we're not meant to work these long hours with no breaks. So, I'm looking into possibly splitting my booth for SoCal Fiber, which means, yes, I'm interested in returning to vend at SoCal Fiber this year in November. So, I guess that's my thoughts on vending, and I was almost one of those people that said it's not for me, but the fiber community is special, and the fact that they can really open up your eyes, make you see things in ways that you may not have previously seen them. So I thought that was very cool. Figured I would share that with y'all. Backtracking again to December, I changed my name on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw that happen. And I also changed my logo. So it's no longer Whitney Marie Anderson, it's just Whitney Marie. And it's kind of funny because as I was writing down, I have my list of things to talk about here today. As I was writing them down, I mentioned the rebranding because it did happen after my last pod. And I was thinking about when I started this podcast, June of 2020, and I called the podcast Just Whit. It was kind of foreshadowing where I'm at now. The podcast, I named it Just Whit because it was just me, not the family, not the kids. Like, this is just my thing. This is my solace, my happy place. This is where I go to unwind, relax, talk about things I love, and this is me alone, my interest. It's beautiful outside, so this is worth it. So now my entire business is called Whitney Marie, and my website is called Just Whitney Marie. And that's because I've dropped the Anderson. If you didn't already know, I'm getting divorced, going through that right now, and dropping that last name was something that I had to do because I did not want to associate my business with a name that I will no longer be using once the divorce is final. And although the divorce isn't final yet, this was something that I could control, something that I could do. So I went ahead and nixed the Anderson and kind of took back my presence on this whole thing of it being mine and just for me to share with you all. So new name, new logo, and I'll put the logo in here so you can see if you didn't already see it. And yeah, not a new me, I'm still me. Yeah, I think that's it about the logo and the rebranding. This is my first podcast in my new surroundings. I made a big move back in February, and this is also relating to all the personal life things. And part of me not podcasting over the last 6 months was getting things in order, getting myself together, going through a lot, and not really knowing how to show up. But now I'm in a place where I'm comfortable with talking about what I'm going through and sharing little bits here and there about my experiences. It's been a lot going through a divorce, becoming a single mom, but it was so necessary, and that fact alone is comforting, the fact that it was necessary. So I'm doing what's best for me, doing what's best for my kids first and foremost, and they're thriving, and I'm on my way to thriving. I just needed to make sure that they were thriving first before I could work on me. I know it's kind of backwards, they say secure your mask before you secure the children's, but I really needed to get them into a safe place, into a thriving environment, so that they could just breathe. And me seeing them thriving has really helped me. So now I'm working on me. But yeah, that's the family life update that I wanted to give y'all. If you want to talk more in depth about it, my DMs on Instagram are open, and so is my email. And I'm a somewhat open book, so if you have questions, as long as you keep it respectful, I'm down to answer. So hit me up. All right, so we talked about the new name. We talked about this being my first pod and the new surroundings. I have on here to talk about my haircut. I'm now rocking a bob. If you saw me in the last pod, my hair was about down to here. I took off 8 to 12 inches in some areas. The hair in the back few rows was much longer than my front rows. I just really feel like this is the look for me. Especially right now. I know, as women, we go through things and we either dye our hair or cut our hair. And I posted about this on Instagram and on TikTok, and a lot of people, even some psychologists, have replied and said, when we go through things that maybe seem out of our control or too big to handle, we tend to turn inward and find something that we can change, that we can control, and have agency over. And for me, cutting my hair into this cute little bob, my mom helped me out, and then I went in and just trimmed it a little bit more. To be honest, I might cut off another inch, but like keep this front part where it is, kind of more asymmetrical. So it's like not on my collar in the back, but I also have an undercut, and it's the most perfect haircut for summer. Believe it or not, like my hair gets really hot, and in the summer I contemplate shaving my head bald every single summer. And not that shaving my head bald is a bad thing, but I feel like this is a good happy medium to not shock the heck out of my kids or myself, and just have shorter hair, lighter hair, and the undercut in the back so I can feel the breeze. So that's the haircut. If I do go in and take off more, I'll post about it, I'm sure. But I'm loving this length, and it allows me to like rock my scarves without my hair being tangled up in things. Oh, let's talk about what I'm wearing. So this is Waves on Swim. This is a knit pattern, and the yarn was dyed by Passion Knits Yarn, one of my favorite hand-dyed yarn dyers, who's on sabbatical. If you want to find very bright and attractive yarns similar, I would suggest Naima Bond. She has a wide range of really bright and festive variegated yarns. But the pattern is on my website, and it's called Waves on Swim, and it's an irregularly shaped shawl, so you don't necessarily see this shape very often, and you can wear it a number of ways. This one right now, it's just behind my neck, draped over my shoulder, and then the other piece is just kind of hanging down. Another way to wear it would be like to bring this off the shoulder and just have it open, and it opens up wider. Just have it open and hanging. Let me see. And see how it's asymmetrical. It's a little wider on one side than it is. You can crisscross it and just let those waves just take over. You can tie it. Once again, the waves just kind of take over. And then, if you're wearing your cardigan closed, it could be on top, kind of just giving you a pop of color. But yeah, I really like to wear it draped over one shoulder with the peak down. And then this piece just kind of hanging forward, showing off where you start. We're getting really good weather right now where I can actually wear knits and not feel like overheated, but then it's so warm. So yeah, this is Waves on Swim, and the yarn's Passion Knits. And since she's on sabbatical right now, unless she still has her shop open, if it is open, I'll link it below. She might still have some things that she's selling, like to get rid of the inventory, but if not, Naima Bond Sister Ananse yarn is a perfect substitute to find very variegated, bright colors, just festive yarn. So that's my little shameless plug. for my little hand-dyed knitting friends, or hand-dyed yarn and knitting friends. All right, so talk about what I'm wearing. It was not even on the list, but we talked about vending, we talked about my haircut and family life. I guess the final thing that I wanted to talk about was my hooks. So I have made hooks. I started making hooks in June of 2023. It doesn't feel like it, but it has not been that long. It feels like I've been making hooks for forever. And I arrived at this where I make so many unique things with my color changing clay. And I had some scrap clay left over from making stitch markers last summer. And I was like, I wonder what it would look like to have this clay on the handle of a crochet hook. Now, my very first hooks were very crude. They were, the handle wasn't placed in a way, the clay portion of the handle wasn't placed in a way where it would be comfortable to crochet with, so I never released them. Then I made some more about a month later in July, and those were sellable. Like, they were usable. I used them for a couple of weeks before I actually put them out for sale at the end of July. And they were the start of my obsession with making crochet hooks. I'll put a little video in here so you can see them changing in the sun. So I used my color changing sun activated clay to make the very first hooks and the second batch that was sellable. And I mean, I can't even say the rest was history because it's still happening. It's now. The rest is now. I'm basically a crochet hook maker, and stitch markers have become my, like, on the side thing, and they used to be my main thing. But you really can't go wrong with having an extra crochet hook. Like, I can understand if you have like a whole set of crochet hooks, but and like me personally, my favorite brand of crochet hooks is Clover. And I would really love to be able to afford to have Clover hooks as my base hook. But right now I'm just using like a generic manufacturer to get my base hooks, and then I'm adding my clay and my resin on top of them. So maybe one day, never say never, I'll be able to use Clover hooks as my base hooks, because they are quite popular with crocheters, and I love them. So I would love for them to be base hooks. But yeah, I started in June making hooks, I started in June making hooks, and then I kind of perfected the shape in August. And then I began selling them. I've had several updates since then. Was it 2023? I have to look back in it feels so much longer than just that amount of time, but I guess it really has been less than a year that I've been making crochet hooks. Pretty wild to think about that. I've gotten to the point right now where I make them a little thicker than I had originally made them back in August of last year. That's based on my personal experience and others with holding them and using them. I feel that the thicker handle is better. But yeah, I'm a hook maker now, and I mean, it's only up from here. I really love doing it, so I'm gonna continue, and it goes well for my customers, so it's a win. Next to the section I wrote about hooks, I put that my very first Just Whit episode 1 was released on June 8th, 2020. And that means that I'm coming up on 4 years of podcasting this June. Right now it's April 16th, so I'm just a couple months away from celebrating my 4th anniversary of this podcast. Like, what? That's wild. Um, Lots of breaks. I can't even say it's like 4 straight consecutive years of podcasting. Well, consecutive years, but not consecutive months. Let's just say that. And I think I'm going to do something to celebrate, but I don't know what I should do. So if you have suggestions, drop that in the comments below. How should I celebrate my 4th anniversary of podcasting? Like, what do I do? Do I buy a number 4 balloon from Party City and have a photo shoot? Do I do a giveaway? Do I go live? Like, what do I do? Help me. I don't know what to do. Do I do it all? I don't know. What do you guys think? Just let me know in the comments what I should do to celebrate my 4th podcasting anniversary. All right, let's talk about whips. Right now, I have several whips that are languishing in whip bags, in project bags. Absolutely not a care in the world. Have not been thinking about them, have not been touching them. The only thing that I've been picking up here and there are called my waiting socks. And these socks, I started them, they're top down or cuff down socks, one at a time on some 9-inch circular needles. And I call them my waiting socks because I knit on them whenever I'm waiting for something, whether I'm in the waiting room at my doctor's office or I'm sitting and waiting on the kids, pick up, drop off, whatever. Let me go get my waiting socks and show you. Okay, so I'm using a self-striping yarn. This is Knit Picks Felici self-striping sock yarn, and can't remember the name of the colorway. Typical podcaster, don't know the name of the colorway. It's either called Game Over or something else. I'll put it down below. Right there. This is how far I've gotten on sock number 1, waiting for things. So this was like my optometry appointment before I got my eyes dilated. This was like waiting at the regular primary care doctor's office. This was waiting on some paperwork at the courthouse, and up top was waiting on kids in the pickup line. So I don't pick them up every single time I'm waiting. Obviously, I do a whole lot more waiting than this, but if I have them close to me, which I try to have them close to me all the time, and I'm waiting on something, I like to pick these up. And it's really cool because I've got a little progress keeper on there, and you know, I just move her every time I'm done. But before I move her, of course, I knit a little bit, and then when I'm done, I look at where I started, which is where she is, and then I, you know, get to see how much progress I did. So I think that's pretty fun. And also she kind of serves as a beginning of the round marker to let me know I've done another round. Doesn't really matter that much right now until I get to, well, I'm thinking about doing these as like tube socks and then do like an afterthought heel and toe, which I've never done before. But that way I can just knit all the way through to the other cuff and then snip them in the middle, do the afterthought toe, snip the heel area, and do the afterthought heel. And then I can just mindlessly knit and not have to worry about heel flaps and gussets and all the other things. So those are my waiting socks. And then my other whip is now no longer a whip. because I frogged it. I had started a flying birds shawl in mohair held double with fingering weight, and it is now here. And I'll show you a picture of it right here. Basically, I was using mohair held double with various fingering weight pink yarns, and some of them were just like almost exactly the same color as the mohair, and then others were a little bit more variegated. And as I moved from color to color, I realized there's just like this stark line of difference between them, between the hot pink leaning and the variegated fingering weight yarns. So I decided to frog the entire project, and it didn't take long, and it wasn't difficult with it being mohair. There were a couple of little snags, but I think I only got one break in the mohair the entire frogging session. So not bad. Now I am going to start this project over, but instead of holding fingering weight and hot pink mohair together, I'm going to be holding DK with this hot pink mohair. And I was thinking yellow to hold with the hot pink, because, you know, pink tends to take over, and then I figured I would get kind of like a pinky haze with like an orangish looking hue underneath. But let me grab it. I'll show you which yarn I'm gonna. Okay, so when I was unpacking after my move, I finally got around to unpacking my yarn, and I came across Jolene from Teeny Button Studios. It's her soft DK 100% superwash merino, and it's mostly, well, I don't know, mostly yellows. Let's undo this one. So yeah, it's heavy on the yellow, but it's got lots of other things going for itself. So I figured that this plus the pink mohair, there's some hot pinks in here too. So it's not like exact pink and pink together, but you know, they mesh well. So I figured that these two would do well for my next flying birds shawl, and that is another one of my patterns that I'm going to be making this into. So yeah, let me know what you think about Jolene, and my mohair is dyed by Passion Knits, and it's called Not Foxy. So Jolene and Not Foxy together, I think are a really cute pair. Then again, I am partial to warm colors, so it might just be me. But yeah, so that's it for whips. I don't have any finished objects to share, and I really want to focus on this this shawl next. So I'm not going to start anything else until I'm maybe like, you know, at least several inches into my shawl. Give it a chance to become a real whip, you know. I'm going to be using 5mm knitting needles to make my Not Foxy Jolene flying birds shawl. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I will share on social media whenever I've got some pictures I've taken of the project. So make sure you follow me on Instagram at just Whitney Marie, and on TikTok under the same name, and YouTube, same name. I think this concludes episode 21 of the Just Whit podcast. And I want to say thank you if you made it this far. I really appreciate you watching my video and chilling with me through this whole long yapping session. Until next time, I will see you soon.